Welcome everyone. Today I'm going to discuss some of the important aspects about our health technology and many important things about climate change. Climate change threatens human health and well-being in the United States, not only the United States and around the world. So climate change is a significant threat to the health of the American peoples. So climate deliver increased temperature, precipitations extremes, extreme weather events, sea level rise, environment and institutional concept, land use change, ecosystem change, infrastructure condition, geography, agricultural production and investment use. Exposure pathway, extreme heat, poor air quality, reductions food and water quality, change in infections agent, population displacement, social and behavioral context, age and gender, race and ethnicity, poverty, housing, infrastructure, education, discrimination, access to care and community health infrastructure, pre-existing health condition, health outcome, health-related illness, cardiopulmonary illness, food, water, vectors, borne disease, mental health consequences, and stress. Example of karmic impact of human health, we are observing there are different kind of disease, floodings, insects related problems, water related problems, food related problems, mental health related things, many things happening because of climate change. Confidence and likelihood terminology. Confidence level very high, strong evidence, multiple success, consistent result, well documented and accepted methods, high moderate evidence, medium suggestive evidence, low inclusive evidence. Future increase in temperature related death. Key findings: 1. Based on present day sensitivity to heat, an increase of thousand of premature health related death in the summer, and a decrease of premature cold related death in the winters are projected each year as a result of climate change. By the end of century, future adaptations will very likely reduce this impact. The reductions in cold related death is projected to be smaller than the increase in health related death in most regions. Even a small difference from the seasonal average temperature rise in illness and death. Key findings: days that are hotter than usual in the summer or colder than usual in the winter are both associated with increased illness and death. Mortality effects are observed even for a small difference from seasonal average temperature. Because small temperature difference occurs much more frequently than large temperature difference, not accounting for the effect of this small difference would lead to underestimating the future impact of climate change. Key findings: 3. An increase in population tolerance to extreme heat has been observed over time. Change in this tolerance have been associated with increased use of air condition, improved social response and or physical acclimatizations among other factors. Expected future increase in the tolerance will reduce the project increase in the death from heat. Key findings: 4. Older adults and children have a higher risk of dying and becoming ill due to extreme heat. People working outdoors, the social isolated and economically disadvantaged, those with chronic illness, as well as some communities of color are also especially vulnerable of death and illness. Temperature related death and illness. We are observing from 2030, 2050, even to 21st century, different kind of death actually increase, especially heat related death actually increase. Air quality impact. Climate change exacerbated ozone health impact. Climate change will make it harder for any given regulatory approach to reduce ground level ozone pollutions in the future as meteorological conditions become increasingly conditioned to forming ozone over most of the United States, unless offset by additional emission reduce of ozone precursor. Their climate-driven increase in ozone will cause premature death, hospital visit, lost school days, and accurate respiratory symptoms. Key findings too. Wildfire emit fine particles and ozones precursors, then it turns increase the risk of premature death and adverse chronic and accurate cardiovascular and respiratory health outcome. Climate change is projected to increase the number and severity of naturally occurring wildfire in part of the United States, increase emissions of particulate matters and ozone precursors and resulting in additional adverse health outcome. Key finding change in climates, specifically rising temperature, alter precipitation patterns, and increased concentrations of atmosphere carbon dioxide are expected to contribute to increase in the level of some airborne allergens and associated increase in asthma episodes and other allergic illness. 3. Air quality impact. Increased exposure to extreme event. Health impact associated with climate related change in exposure to extreme event include death, injury or illness, exacerbations of underlying medical condition, average effect of mental health. Climate change will increase exposure risk in some region of the United States due to projected increase in the frequency and or integrity of drought, wildfire and flooding related extreme precipitations and hurricanes. Key findings too. Distributions of essential infrastructure, impact of extreme event of human health. Many types of extreme event related to climate change cause disruptions of infrastructure, including power, water, transportation, communication system that are essential to maintain across to healthcare and emergency response service and safeguarding human health. Vulnerability of coast flooding. Coastal populations with general vulnerability to health impact from essential flooding include persons with disabilities or other excessive functional needs. Certain populations of color, older adults, pregnant, women and children, low income population and some occupational group. Climate change will increase exposure risks to coastal flooding due to increase in extreme precipitations and in hurricane intensity and rainfall rates, as well as sea level rise and the resulting increase in storm surge. There is different kind of impact we are observing: heat wave, tornadoes, hurricane, flood, windstorms, lightning, cold wave, winter storms, many things actually happening. Changing distribution of the vector and the vector-borne disease. Climate change is expected to alter the geographic and seasonal distribution of existing vector-borne disease. Vector-borne disease. Tick, uh, Key findings too. Ticket capable of carrying the bacteria that cause Lyme disease and other pathogens will cause earlier essential activity and general northward expansion in response to increased temperature associated with climate change. Vector-borne disease, the key findings 3. Rising temperature, changing perceptions patterns, and high frequency of some extreme weather event associated with climate change will influence the distributions, abundance, and prevention of infections in the mosquito that transmit will other than pathology by altering habit, availability in mosquitoes, and virtual respondent rate. Key finding 4. Vector-borne pathogens are expected to emerge and reemerge due to the interference of the climate factor when many other drives such as changing land use patterns. The impact of human disease, however, will be limited by the adaptive capacity of human population such as vector control practice or the personal proactive measures. Seasonal geographical changes in waterborne illness risk. Increase in water temperature associated with climate change will also be seasonal windows of growth and the geographic range of suitable habit for freshwater toxin production harmful algae, certain natural occupational vibration bacteria, and marine toxin production harmful algae. These changes will increase the risk of exposure to waterborne pathogens and algal toxins that can cause a variety of illness. Round off from the more frequent and intense extreme perceptions event will increase compromise recreational waters, selfish harvesting water, source of drinking water through increased introduction of the pathogen and prevention of the toxin allies blooms. As a result, the risk of human exposure to agent water related illness will increase. Water infrastructure failures increase in some extreme weather event, and strong surgeons will increase the risk of infrastructure for drinking water. Waster waters, storm waters will fail due to the either damage or exceeds of system capacity. Climate impact of water related illness. Climate change, including rising temperatures and changing in water extremes, expected to increase the exposure of the food to certain pathogens and toxins. This will increase the risk of the negative impact. There are more other interesting findings we are observing from food safety and nutrition and distribution perspectives, as well as we are observing from the mental health and well-being issues. So for the mental health, many people exposure to climate related or water related disaster experience stress and serious mental health consequences, and which will create actually many challenging and environmental factors for our economy. Findings: two specific group of people are at higher risk for distress and other adverse mental health consequences from exposure to climate related or water related disasters. Many people will experience adverse mental health outcome and social impact from threatened to climate change, the perceived direct experience of the climate change and change to one local environment. People with mental illness are at high risk for the poor physical and the mental health due to extreme heat. There are medical and physical health, mental health, community health. Population's concerns. So we are observing population's concerns and many important aspects, specifically exposure, sensitivity, adaptive capacities, which is create a lot of challenges. What is exposure? Exposure is contact between a person and one or more biological, psychological, chemical, and physical stress, including stress affected by the climate change. Sensitivity. Sensitivity is the degree to which people or communities are affected and either adversely or beneficially by climate variety or change. Adaptability. Adaptability capacity is the ability of communities, institutions, or people to adjust of potential hazards to take advantage of the opportunities or the responses of the consequences. So vulnerability and many interesting things we can do in an effective way. So these are the major climate change related things which will actually happen, which will create more factors in our healthcare and education systems. Climate change actually make a lot of disasters around the world. So we have to be very much careful about climate change. We have to be very much effective about climate change. We need to be very much professionals about climate change. And if we can understand that climate change has more impact in our life and we can overcome from these things with our professional way, that times we can play a major role for our society. So I request everyone, please join in the climate change related activities, make some major projects, make some work, do some effectiveness, create some values, add values to our society, make some effective means and create the value for the society, which will very much effective for our ecosystem. So thank you everyone. If you have any kind of question regarding climate change, you can communicate with me. Thank you everyone.